Welcome, everybody, and welcome to the Bonsai and Jacaranda members who will have access to the recording and the bonuses in the membership area. In the next 30 to 45 minutes, we will talk about how having a purposeful life makes us healthier and happier. Today, I will be talking with Paul Shepard. He's a mindset coach known for his holistic approach to anxiety and stress, confidence and motivation. We will discuss how to understand and easily change our mindset and live a purposeful and sustainable life. I'm very excited to talk about this today. Thank you for being here, Paul.
You're welcome. Nice to see you.
So tell me, to start with, how did you become a mindset coach?
Well, it went right back when I grew up in a neighborhood which was quite rough. In other words, it wasn't the most safest place for a child to grow up because of the type of kids that were in the neighborhood. I was bullied quite a lot. And that bullying led to me developing an anxiety disorder. So as I grew up with an anxiety disorder, I sought out help from the doctor. My parents were no good. I also had a strange relationship with my parents as well. It wasn't going well there either. And so traditional medicine, they just threw pills at me. I was too frightened to take them. I sought out traditional approaches like therapy. That didn't help. I even started training as a therapist at the age of 17 and didn't find help there either. I started my first counseling courses at such a young age. I was seeking something which would give me the tools and strategies I needed to be able to go on public transport because I started to develop a fear of having a panic attack in public. I had social anxiety really badly due to bullying and unconsciously and consciously thinking about being in groups of people as dangerous. So that led me down the therapy route. I trained in various therapies, had therapy, and nothing was working. And there was a point in my life, Catherine, where I was sat in my bathroom at home and I actually thought of ending it. I didn't think I was going to continue. So I made a decision. I just couldn't see a future without having anxiety. And so I didn't see a future where there was any hope. But in that moment of what do I do? Something shifted inside of me. It's a strange feeling. I can remember it, but it's almost like something moved. And there was this intuition or voice. I know some people think that's religious or spiritual, or I think maybe intuition, which said, you need to look at the bigger picture. You're focusing too much just on your mind. Because that's what, when I had therapy, that's all anyone talked about. They didn't ask me about my lifestyle, which was completely unsustainable. They didn't ask me about, what was going on, what were my habits, how was I sleeping? It was always about, what are you worried about? What's going on inside your head? Tell me about your past. So I began to focus on the bigger picture of, well, one of the things that I learned quite quickly was I was breathing completely the wrong way. I was a shallow breather in through the mouth, which was exacerbating pressure on my nervous system, on my sympathetic, which is part of the survival response. By learning to master my autonomic nervous system, I began to feel calmer. By eating better, I began to feel calmer. That got me very excited because I then had moments of being anxiety-free, which for me also caused a bit of panic because I wasn't used to feeling not anxious. But I overcame that.
Yes.
It took me down the holistic route. It took me down into the whole, it is about a mindset, but still looking at the bigger picture, the holistic mindset there are so many facets which focus on, anxiety, stress, confidence issues, self-esteem. It's never just about one thing inside the mind. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes therapists and coaches often make.
Yes. And I think that also when you are in this dark place, you're only focused on yourself and totally disconnected from everything else. And as you said, looking at the bigger picture, it's really basically about the why also, no?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I was completely and utterly, it's known as the spotlight effect, where when you become anxious, it becomes all about you. You worry that other people are judging you.
Yes.
You worry that other people are going to see you in a negative way. You can only focus on yourself. So you literally become the universe. You literally become the center of the universe. And again, so I trained in therapy, but I used a holistic approach to it. But still, therapy for me was too past-based. And I loved the fact that people responded really well to coaching approach and focusing on their mindsets by looking at it holistically. And that's how I became a mindset coach, but holistic, focusing always on the bigger picture, not just do what's inside our minds, though we need a good mindset to live a sustainable life, to look at our whys, to find our purpose. So the 4 key pillars that I teach, Catherine, in regards to being the holistic mindset is mind, body, heart, and purpose. And when we invest in a bit of those each day, we tend to feel much, not a guarantee, but we tend to feel much more better in ourselves. We see the world through a different set of healthier lenses.
Yes, and it's basically finding the right balance between all those pillars.
Yeah, because if you focus...
So I totally relate to this.
If you focus on too much.
Yeah, I totally relate to this as a coach. Yeah, and even when we talk about only nutrition, we talk only about thinking about the body, but everything which goes through your mind has a direct impact on your body, the surroundings as well, and also your why or your purpose. So we all have, or we should have, the ability to choose how to live our life. But obviously in today's world, with so many choices, it might quickly be overwhelming to choose how to live your life because you don't know really what you want. You have the influence of what you see around you a lot on TV. And having a meaningful life, I think, is not necessarily the same as having purpose. I think that these are two different aspects. I think that meaning is really something or somehow someone who is which is defined, and as well as the intention or the reason for doing something, whereas the purpose is rather the fulfillment of the meaning. So how can we find meaning and purpose in life? What's your approach to this?
We don't live, just listening to what you just said, we don't live in a culture that often promotes getting to know yourself. We're so distracted with screen time, the overconsumption of entertainment. We have a lot of things vying for our attention. And if we don't master our focus and choose wisely where to place our attention, we'll get caught up. It's like a wave of just going with life, drifting through it, almost in autopilot. And so one thing to do, if you want to find out your purpose, to find out what meaning you want to give life, is to get to know yourself. And that's, most people look at
I totally agree.
When I talk to clients and I said, what time do you spend getting to know who you are? What are your needs? What makes you tick? Blank stares. Because they're so used to work, getting up, they may be busy with children or just life. They go to work and then their whole evening is spent food and then TV or some form of entertainment, which, could be gaming, could be just looking through their phones, scrolling through various apps. That could be 5 to 6 hours of someone's life living like that. If that's what someone really wants to do, good luck to you. But I would say to anyone looking for meaning and purpose is there has to be an investment in getting to know yourself. That has to be the foundation. And you can do that through self-exploration. I teach meditation. I do meditations on the Mindset Change podcast. You can journal. You can talk to a coach like myself or yourself. You can talk to a therapist. But awareness is the key. Awareness of yourself. What are your needs? What lights you up?
Yes. I mean, awareness is something which we too often forget, being just aware of what is happening around us, within us. And I totally agree with you on that. It reminds me of what you said before. When I was a child, you didn't have, well, you had TV, but it was not non-stop like now. Obviously, social media, smartphones didn't exist. And we just spent time doing things, playing around, going outside, crafting, painting, or whatever you could think, or just spending time with friends. And nowadays, this has totally shifted. And so you don't know anymore. You're just in this hamster wheel, and day after day, days go by, and at one point, 10 years have passed, and you're still at the same place.
I absolutely agree. I did a podcast episode. Reminds me of what you just said. Is your average life making you anxious? And I think we are not often, I mean, me and you are very lucky. We're part of a mastermind where we're really going for it. But I know what it's like to tread water, where you're encouraged to go for an average life, putting in average effort for average reward, average success. And all it does, it leaves us feeling dissatisfied. There's no growth there. There's no sense of progression.
No.
So where's the confidence going to come from if you don't get a sense of progression?
It reminds me of someone who is not feeling well or is sick. And it's only once they get healthy or better that they realize how bad they were feeling before, or how sick they were feeling before. And I think that awareness is the first step to be aware of where we stand, to be able to make a step forward.
I agree. Awareness, but be awake with awareness. It's very tempting just to go onto autopilot. As you said, drift through another 10 years, just reacting to life. And it does take training. This is the bit that people sometimes want a magic bullet for. They just want to go, I'd love to be present, but I haven't got the time. And I'm addicted to my thinking about catastrophes or how terrible the future is going to go at some point. Fantasizing about negative futures that don't even exist can feel very alluring. Gives us a false sense of control. But again, awake and aware, this present moment, this is all we have. And it's in this present moment that we can develop insight. Without insight, we won't know ourselves. This is why I like journaling. Journaling is an important part of my life. I was doing it just before we came online for this interview today. Just having to think about how I want this interview to go with you and how I want the day to go, and having some insights, allowing room for them to pop up. Because without knowing myself, which direction am I going to go in?
Exactly. It's like being on the road without a destination. You don't know where you will end up. And I totally agree with you with journaling, especially in the morning, or even if it's not journaling, because I know people who don't like to journal, and that's okay. But just taking the time, even if it would be only 5 minutes to start with in the morning, on your own, without scrolling through your phone and being aware, I think it's really the first step. And it also gives you the energy for the day.
Absolutely.
You prime your day the way you start your day.
Yeah, the amount of clients who've told me when I've said, I'm going to get you to start journal, they roll their eyes. They look like I'm giving them homework. It's like that teacher-child relationship. And I'm like, when I explain the benefits, and we'll keep it quite simple, I've not had a client say, I'm not going to continue this. I really look forward to journaling now, because they're taking abstract thought and popping it onto paper, because trying to think through things is difficult. It can be really hard. And yet by popping it onto paper, we begin to process much more differently, healthily, and we develop insights. But we can't just do it inside our minds. That's quite
Yes, and there is also a direct relation to putting pen to paper, because if you just write it in an app or on your computer, you won't have the same benefits as when you write by hand.
No, absolutely. I encourage everyone to do it by pad and paper. I use it's called Remarkable. I use an electronic pad, which actually has a pen, and it feels like you're writing on paper. Really lovely. And, so I have different types of journals for different types of things. I have a future self journal where I talk to myself from the future, encouraging myself, giving myself a pep talk. I have a business journal about what I'd like to happen within my business. I have a personal journal thinking about how am I, and I can choose to write in any one of those. Lots of different topics and subjects.
Yes. Yes, I think it's even sometimes we think, okay, a lot of people don't want to write because they're thinking maybe someone will read it at one point. But I think when you start writing every day, you may write so much and so many pages that I don't think that someone would spend the time going through this. But on the other side, even if you don't read it back for some personal things, just getting it out of your head and on paper, it's also a weight which can fall off your shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do encourage to read it back. I look back at mine in January. I don't recognize that person back in January. And that sense of progression. Look at where I was. Look at where I am now. I have a popular podcast.
Yes.
It was just me, as we were discussing just before we came online. I didn't even entertain the idea of having top guests on my show. And now I've got on my show top experts in their fields coming on and talking about subjects I know will give my listeners deep value. I was unconsciously incompetent. It just wasn't part of my world to have that in my world. Now it is. It's developing that interviewing style, that's added purpose, that's added more meaning to my life, which I didn't realize before. So journaling has given me that insight, being part of a group of people discussing and masterminding, what do you really want, challenging you, exploring with you, coaching you, gives you more insight, more options, or we could just drift and live an average life. But I think that makes us anxious, because if anything begins to tip it up, we haven't developed the resilience to be able to carry ourselves forward. It becomes more of a struggle.
Yes. And I think that journaling also just helps you find your destination. So you're not on a path to anywhere, but to where you want to go.
Absolutely. And I would also say to someone, if they don't know their core values, for example, and you can do plenty of tests online for free to find out what your core values are, because they can be the foundation of how you want to live life. Is a core value community, for example? If it was, and you're not really doing much with your community, then you might want to reassess that. One of my core values is being adventurous. So if I'm not planning in adventures, peak experiences, then I will feel that that loss of disconnection with myself will create a response within my mind and body. So again, it's when we realize what our core values are, we can begin to create proactive action into doing something about that. And the neurochemistry from that alone, it makes us feel wonderful.
Yes, I totally agree on this. And it also reminds me something a lot of people talked about, Robin Sharma, for example, Stephen Covey as well. When you are 80 or when you are on your deathbed, but maybe some people would prefer the 80-year-old version. How do you want to be remembered? What do you want to achieve in life? What do you want to leave as a legacy? And thinking about this will make your values clear to you as well.
I think so. I was listening to Alex Mill, who talks about it in A Zen Life, and also Anthony DeMello talks about this in the book Awareness, that, again, focusing more on what we can create in this moment, in the present moment, and choosing from the here and now how we want to be with purpose, how we want to live with intention, to move away sometimes from legacies, but to focus on, did I live a happy life? Did I live a joyful life? And that does come from having meaning and purpose. And when we do that, we tend to, as a side effect, create those legacies that, they could, if someone was at my eulogy, they could say, Paul had a happy life. He was a happy person. He wasn't hell-bent on some purpose, which can, lead him out of balance. He was happy. He was genuinely happy, but he was also living with purpose. The extrinsic goal of a legacy is lovely. And I'd love to think that the work that I do has had an impact, and that will be my legacy. But who I am as a being, living with meaning and purpose each day, will create those side effects of other people getting to experience what I put out into the world. And that's how if I was on my deathbed,
yes, I totally agree.
On my deathbed, I'd like to say, I had a really amazing ride, and then I can close my eyes and go to sleep. I'm not sure it happened like that, but that's a possibility.
But I think it also helps being in with the right mindset. And you were saying, talking about side effects. So I think there are a lot of side effects of having a purposeful life or a fulfilling life. And I think one of the side effects is a direct relation between purpose and our health and happiness. So how does it increase our happiness, having a purpose?
Well, the neurochemistry alone is off the scale. So when you are tapping into your purpose and you're living with meaning, you're likely to be boosting serotonin. Well, when that's boosted, we feel content. We feel happy with ourselves. We can feel quite present. When we're boosting dopamine, that's not, as it's known as the reward chemical, which is a bit of a misnomer. It's actually the motivation chemical. That gives us drive, that gives us energy. It makes us get out of bed in the morning with that why, creating dopamine, and we begin to hunt it out, and that could be a variety of things. So this morning I got up, I was looking forward to talking to you today. So I have a few whys, I have a few things of things that I really want to experience today with intention. So that is driven by my purpose to talk about this work. And as in this present moment, I can't be anywhere else. So this is the right time, the right place, and the right circumstances. So I'm very present right now. That makes me feel really happy that I'm also living with purpose. And that chemistry boost is insane.
I totally agree with you. Yesterday evening, I was thinking, okay, tomorrow I have the fireside chat with Paul. And actually, I woke up with energy 1 hour before my alarm. I always put my alarm in case I don't get up. I always get up earlier, but more like 15, 20 minutes, half an hour earlier. And I was up 1 hour before and really eyes wide open. So it really gives you a boost, the energy and the happiness, and also this enthusiasm to live your day.
Absolutely. We boost oxytocin if we're connected to people. We develop a healthier relationship with our communities, with our families, with our friends, or whoever it is that's part of your purpose. We develop a healthier relationship with ourselves. So it develops resiliency. When we're living our why, the how, no matter how difficult, becomes much more bearable. And we grow from that. And again, it's such a wonderful confidence booster.
Yes.
So it has a huge impact on the neurochemistry, your physiology within your body. And as you reduce inflammation, so the more that you're working healthily with your body, so sustainably, you reduce inflammation because you're reducing stress, you're reducing anxiety. So you're not likely to move towards depression or having an anxiety disorder like I had. I didn't have a purpose when I was younger. No one gave me any guidance. There was no, this is what we're going to do. What would you like to do with your life? This is what we're going to do with you to help you. There was none of that. I had to find my own way. And that I really would have liked that, but I didn't have that. I had to work it out for myself, which I did, and I'm very grateful for that. But when we reduce inflammation, we feel well. Our immune system, 70% of it resides in the gut. Inflammation on the gut impacts serotonin, dopamine, impacts your gut microbiota. That is all impacted if you don't have a sense of living with purpose and meaning.
Yes, I totally agree. And I think that now more than ever, it's important, especially for the younger people who are surrounded with so many screens everywhere and so much information and social media, that they get lost into this ocean of what you should do, how you should look like. And they want to just try something out which they saw, which seemed appealing, but actually it's not really their own purpose. So if you don't live your own purpose and you live someone else's purpose, obviously it won't have the same effect. So it's really important to know your why, as you said.
Absolutely.
When I think about the why, one of the things I like to do is the 7 whys exercise, because when you ask yourself why, the first 3-4 answers, it's your head speaking, but the last 3 to 4, it's really your inner self or your inner child, if you want to name it like this, who really gets to tell you what you really want.
What remind me? I know I know what it is, but I don't know. Do your listeners know what the 7 whys questions are? Do you know? Do they know the process?
So the 7. So I can explain it quickly. So when you want to do something, ask yourself, why do I want to do blah blah blah? Fill out the blank, and then the fill out the blank is the next question. Why do you want to what you answered before? So you ask this 7 times, so you really go deeper and deeper and deeper. It's like peeling an onion.
Yeah,
you know,
it's a brilliant exercise
to get really to the source, if you want, or to the center.
Yeah, that's how it's
and it is something I
think it's a wonderful way with journaling to get to know yourself, just to ask yourself that question. You know, it's that process of self-mastery. Who are you? Who am I? And getting to know. Because, as you said, we get lost in other people's whys. In other words, we look at, I think Instagram can be quite popular for that. We look at how other people are living their lives and we go, well, I want that, because we're just seeing a snapshot of them relaxing on a beach, looking beautiful, or, appearing to have what looks like wealth. So again, people create that as a purpose, an extrinsic goal. But the reality is that's not going to be their true purpose. So they're not going to feel satisfied at all when they get that. If they get that, it becomes an empty goal. And again, this is why if money and living that type of lifestyle led to happiness, we wouldn't be seeing people who do live that lifestyle, drugs, alcohol issues, depression, anxiety. They're struggling because it's not real to them. It's just a beautiful scenery. But where's the purpose? Where's the meaning to this?
Yes, I totally agree. So it's actually just stepping out of the hamster wheel and stopping being on autopilot, taking the time for awareness, even if it's just starting with 2 or 5 minutes a day in the morning, And with time, you build this up, because I think it's like a muscle. The more you do it, the more you take your time to be aware and to know yourself, the more you will be able to do it for longer times, and also to wanting to do it for longer times.
I think one of the antidotes, because obviously I'm an anxiety coach, one of the antidotes to anxiety is peace. And when you sit in the present moment and you allow yourself to feel peaceful, we develop insight. That insight will help you develop an awareness with yourself, knowledge with yourself that you didn't have before, because you've given your mind time for peace and time to think, space to think. But we're so bombarded, as you said, with screens and noise and sounds and things, and we don't often give ourselves that bit of peace and quiet. I go for a walk every day, about 40 to 50 minutes, with no headphones. I live by the sea, I live on the beach, so I can just walk up the beach, and I allow my mind to freely wander. I don't focus on anything in particular. I could ask myself a question if I wanted to, but in general, I just allow my mind to wander, and the insights and the ideas that come up, because I've given my mind that time to focus and think. It's beautiful. But how?
Yes, this is something I really enjoy, and I think that one of the easiest way to just get a little bit more of time for yourself and being aware, and not and outside of all the information, screens and so on, is just getting out in nature and enjoying what you see, enjoying what you listen. It's being mindful as well. And it's true what you said. When I take a break, for example, I take a 5-minute break, I just sit down on my terrace, enjoy the sun. This is when I get my best ideas. It's really because it opens up the possibilities for new to come. Whereas if you're just busy in the busyness, you can't have new ideas. You can't think about something new.
Absolutely. And journaling also clears out what you've got, those ideas inside your head, and gives you space for new ones. Otherwise, I think we can all relate to it. We can have the same old thoughts rattling around, and we're not getting any new insights because we're not clearing space for them. It's like doing a little bit of spring cleaning.
I always said, if every day of your life you're doing the same things, don't expect to be different in 5, 10, or 20 years.
Absolutely.
Your life will be the same.
Absolutely. Do the same. We can't expect to do the same thing and for our lives to be different. And as I said, it's and I like taking full 100% responsibility for our lives, which means we have to acknowledge that the current state of our lives are a reflection of every decision that we've made. And that can be tough to hear.
It's a summer.
Yeah, it's tough to hear, but it's also at the same time, it's empowering to think, well, I need then to be awake to choose to make other decisions. The other option is that I'm asleep at the wheel or a passenger in the car of life, and I'm not choosing the destination. So, as I said, it's important to wake up and choose in the present moment what you want to think, where you want to go, what you want to do next. But people say to me, I get lost in my thoughts, like I'm a slave to them. And I say, when you turn on the TV and it's a program you don't like, do you just sit there and just watch it? Oh, no, I turn it over. You can do that with your mind. You're not a slave to whatever program or channel is inside your mind. You can choose in the present moment to think something new. We've always had that ability.
I love it.
Yeah, and people say to me, what? But it's like, it's not new. It's not new information. It's just they've never seen it in that context before. Choose to think what you need to think. Where do you want to go? And allow your mind to, because your mind wants direction. It's like a dog with a stick. It wants you to throw the stick. It wants the direction to go chase, to go fetch. So tell your mind what you want. Like today, I get up. I want today to be a great day. I want to do a great interview with Catherine. I want to be a great coach. I want to create a great podcast episode. I want to do all these things. And again, so my mind is going, right, let's make that happen for you. But if I just got up this morning and didn't say anything, just walked around on autopilot, looking at the news or whatever habit I have in the morning, I'm creating no direction. And that's, this is why I'm very happy to be living with purpose and meaning.
Yes. And I think that one other exercise which can also help is what I call the gratitude exercise. I like to do it in the morning because this really primes your day and gives the energy of the day. And just by being grateful, not only what was, but more what is and what will be. And this is something people often forget, is being grateful for something that you want to be will make things easier. It makes you so happy, so fulfilled in life. And it can just be like, I'm grateful for this beautiful day. And then add to this all the positive qualities you want in your day, like this beautiful day full of laughter and joy and happiness.
I love that. I do the
and it really
I do the 5-minute journal. Again, just focusing on 3 things I'm grateful for today. But did you know you can supercharge your gratitude practice by focusing on memories of people being grateful for something you've done? So when you focus on, if someone's ever said,
now this I didn't know.
It's Dr. Andrew Huberman talked about this on a gratitude episode for his show Huberman Labs. And one of the things that he talked about to supercharge gratitude practice is to focus on, well, who's been grateful for you? What have you done for someone? Which someone's gone, Catherine, thank you so much for that. That's really impacted me or helped me. And again, it changes those brain filters. We have what's known as a reticular activating system, which is a filter in the brain. So when you begin to focus on supercharging your gratitude practice with, well, who's appreciated what I've done, or even a memory where you've watched someone else be grateful for something that someone else has done, the neurochemistry boost is huge. But your mind then goes to seek out more of those experiences. Your filters, the reticular activating system is a filter of life. It will filter reality by whatever you tell it is important to filter. In other words, we all see what we want to see. So by telling it that, oh yeah, I'm grateful for noticing these things, it will draw your attention to it.
This is something I really didn't knew. So I always say you learn every day. But it's really, obviously, it opens up your mind to empathy and compassion.
Oh, and again, it helps us, and why that's important is because it helps us create connection. We can all get lost in being, like an island, a wall, having a wall between us and other people because of trauma, past experiences. And again, developing empathy and compassion for another person. Why are they behaving the way they are? What's going on for them? Instead of moving away from the spotlight effect where we're the universe to connecting with the other person. I mean, it's a gift that keeps on giving because you're creating understanding. You don't always have to agree what the other person's doing or going through or their beliefs or values, etc. But developing a sense of understanding is much more powerful than living in judgment. Because the only thing that living in judgment, the only person that gets hurt by that really is the person doing the judging.
Yes, I totally agree. And it's, and I think it's also one of the first steps to feel this sense of community. Because community has also a direct impact on our health and happiness.
Yeah, and we seem to be losing that. As even watching TV has changed. I remember as a child, we would all gather to watch a certain program. And now everyone's kind of walking away and watching different programs on their own in their bedrooms or coming home alone. And even we've lost that sense of community, that connectedness for activities that we once enjoyed together. We're becoming isolated. And I think we're losing our social muscles by doing that. So the weaker we become in our social muscles, I think we often give ourselves unhelpful terms like introvert. And when we give ourselves a term like that, we can live up to it. We'll act it out. We become attached to that label.
It's interesting because the other day I was thinking about this. If someone would have known me when I was 15, 20, 25, they would say that I was an introvert because I was not speaking a lot. I was more listening to others. And it was just a little bit of timidity, but also I loved listening to what my grandparents said or had to tell me, and just learn. And obviously it shifted. Now I'm happy to talk. But if you know me now, compared to 20, 25, 30 years ago, you have this kind of introvert at one point, which people would say, and would now say extrovert. But actually, we're not introverts or extroverts. I think we have both. And it's just how we live which makes us shift more to one side than to the other one.
Absolutely. But our perspectives of being around people can often determine if we feel introverted or extroverted. I think we carry a lot of our baggage from our pasts. And if we don't let that go, it will determine how we see, feel, and behave around people. So if you have a past where you struggled to be around people, or you grew up in an environment where it was, stressful, and you had to try and predict what everyone's needs are because that's how you stayed safe, then going into a social environment where that might be your automatic program will leave your battery drained. So it's easy to class yourself as an introvert for that reason. But we can learn to change. We can do things differently. Again, it's okay if you really feel that you're introverted. There's nothing wrong with that. But I would say to anyone, be careful of that label, because it can become an excuse and it can become a label that you live out. And the only person that's going to be hurt by that is going to be you.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. And I think it's also a good reminder.
It's connection. It is connection. How we connect with ourselves and how we connect with other people is going to be everything for us. And one thing I think with awareness is that we have to develop a connection with ourselves where we're happy with ourselves. And that's why getting to know yourself is so vital. To be able to sit alone without being bored, without needing people around you, yet to distract you, it's one of those gifts that keep on giving. But if you need people, if you're doing everything you can to move away from that, that feeling of loneliness or boredom, then you'll place attachments onto the people around you that can be very unhealthy. And you can become manipulative and controlling, especially in relationships. And that's one way to a disaster, really. So again, it's coming back to being able to be with yourself, having a healthy relationship with yourself will ripple out and create healthier relationships around you.
Yes. And I think one thing came to my mind. It's also not being too judgmental and critical with ourselves. Because go ahead.
I was going to say, but that comes, we learn that, don't we? We're not born that way. We're just repeating another person's version of us. So we learn from our parents. Usually it can be parents or teachers or even older siblings, younger siblings, who we grew up with. We're just repeating. And once we know who's talking through us, we might be able to, with awareness, change it to a healthier dialogue.
Yes. Yes, and having the awareness to listen to how we speak, and especially how we speak to ourselves or to others, but actually also to ourselves. And I often give this example to when we say, I should, I must, I have to, which is so heavy as an energy. Whereas if you say, what if I do this? What if I do that? It feels so much lighter and so much more positive than negative. And so this also allows you to step away from this judgmental side you may have, or this critical side you may have towards yourself.
Yeah, in Zen terms, they talk about the light side and the dark side. And they talk about the voices within. So we have the voices which have been conditioned into us. I call it part of a primal hypnotic trance exacerbated by our past conditioning. And that's the dark side. It's where we fall asleep and we go into judgment and criticism, and we do the things that are not very good for us. And we have the awake, aware light side, where we get to focus on our values and what we want to do. And they can be in conflict with each other. And what we have the power to do with repetition and training is develop a more dominant right side, the light side, so that we are starting to live the life that we truly want to live. And the dark side, sometimes useful, in other words, self-doubt or being aware of dangers, we can begin to create a better balance and better relationship with them. But if your dark side is too dominant, you're going to be asleep, you're going to be in that primal hypnotic trance. We evolved for survival. Out of context, it was me and you not having to fight for survival today, luckily enough. But that's how people live. They live in fear. They live with their mind catastrophizing as if they're really in danger. No, they're not. But if they don't learn to call it out for what it is, a load of nonsense, then they'll just keep repeating those behaviors. So there needs to be a pattern interrupt. That pattern interrupt is being awake and aware, asking questions like the why question.
Exactly.
Is this thought through? You know, what could I do differently? What do I want? You know, but making it a more proactive.
Finding your way.
Finding your way, a more proactive, helpful way forward.
Yeah. I think we could speak for hours and hours about all this, and it's really so interesting. I really love it, and I'm really grateful that you are here with me today to talk about this. As I said, we could speak on and on and on because this is such an interesting topic, and give more information about this. Maybe we do it at a later stage. Anyway, for the Bonsai and Jacaranda members, they will have extra bonuses in the membership area, as well as a recording, and they will be able to ask more questions afterwards. So we can still, or I can still address questions afterwards as well. Paul, I'm really grateful for having you today on my fireside chat, and I speak to you soon.
Thank you for having me on. It's been wonderful.
And thanks everyone. Yes, and thanks everyone for joining the Fireside Chat today.